Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Down Syndrome Center podcast. As always, I'm your host, Dr. Kishore Volodi, and today we're going to be talking about a topic that I think is probably something that many of our listeners with Down syndrome or their caregivers are recognizing as something that they see in their loved one with Down syndrome, and that's foot issues. And I would say probably. I don't know. We'll find out today from our guest how frequently they find it to be a situation that comes up. But boy, we see a lot of foot issues in our patients, and I would love to talk about that more with our guest, Sarah Mann. Sarah, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Dr. B. I'm so happy to be here.
Well, we're glad to have you here. We've talked a lot about your passion for therapy, physical therapy, particularly, and also foot and posture issues that can come up in people with Down syndrome. So I'm so excited to have you on the podcast today. Before we get into the podcast, though, tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and what draws you to work with this population.
Absolutely. Well, my name is Dr. Sarah Mann, and I'm a physical therapist out here in Arvada, Colorado. And I've been working with people with Down syndrome for 20 years that have just flown by. And it is just a gift to myself to get to work with my favorite people on earth every day. So that's really how I'm drawn to working with
Yeah.
people with Down syndrome. We have a specialized clinic out here in Colorado that provides occupational therapy and physical therapy services only for people with Down syndrome across the lifespan.
Wow, that's really amazing. Is that pretty unique? I mean, are there other people who do something similar that you've heard of over the across the country or a world or anywhere?
I don't know of any private
Wow.
practices that
Yeah.
specialize in this area. Like, we're so lucky that we get to work with so many wonderful hospital-based organizations and Down syndrome centers, especially here in Colorado. We're so lucky to have Dr. Martin over at the
Uh-huh.
Adult Down Syndrome
Sure.
Clinic, and now Dr. Balmer over at the C Center for Down Syndrome. So we get to work with a lot of wonderful hospital-based organizations like your clinic. Oh, so
Yeah.
awesome. The Chicago Down Syndrome Clinic,
Sure.
but not a lot of private practice clinics that specialize just in working with our people with Down syndrome from birth all the way on.
Wonderful. So as far as I'm hearing then there really isn't like a personal or family connection. You just have a heart for the community.
Well, 20 years ago, I was
Yeah.
a personal trainer working in the gym. I love to exercise, I love fitness. And this wonderful family came up to me and, just this whippersnapper that I was and said, Sarah, can you work with my son? And I'm like, I am a personal trainer who knows everything. Of course I can. And they said, great, he's 40 and has Down syndrome. And I was like, okay, well, I really like him. He's awesome. And he loves the golden age of bodybuilding. He loves being strong and healthy. And this wonderful family just, gave me so much grace
Yeah.
to learn with them how to best help their son who's in his 40s. And then other families started coming up to me at the gym, again, 20 years ago. And they're like, Sarah, I see you working with Robbie.
Huh.
Could you work with my son? He also has Down syndrome. And I was like, well, absolutely. I know one person with Down syndrome, so I'm basically an expert. And they were like, oh, that's great. My son is 16 and is nonverbal and is nothing like Robbie. I was like, oh, well, let's learn that. And those families gave me more grace.
Wow.
And my friends with Down syndrome just were like the best part of my day.
Yeah.
So then I started stalking Dr. Martin, asking him like, what do I need to be doing to help patients best? Like, as an exercise person, what should I be doing to help them more? Because I was noticing some common things that happened with a lot of my clients with Down syndrome. And Dr. Martin took time with this little rookie personal trainer, and we really had a lot of discussions about the lack of physical therapy specifics and protocols and recommendations, especially for teens and adults. So
Mhm.
that actually inspired me to do better for our people with Down syndrome. That's actually why I went back to get my doctorate in physical therapy so that I
Mhm.
could specifically work with adults with Down syndrome. And that's, I wanted to learn more to take better care of my favorite people in the world who had
Wow.
given me so much grace
Yeah.
with learning and just experiencing the joy of that teamwork.
What a great story. I love that. I love how the community, the way that they showed you love and acceptance made you want to continue to work with that same population. I love that. That's so great. You know, as we alluded to, as I was talking about in that intro to the podcast today, I mean, we see a lot of foot issues in people with Down syndrome in our clinic, and that goes for the pediatric side and on the adult side of the clinic. And yet, I can tell you we're not taught very much, if anything, in medical school, or I'm sure other areas of training that people go through in terms of how to manage it. Like what are some of the things that we could do? So I wanted to focus this podcast on those things. So before we get too far, tell us a little bit about what are some of the primary issues that you see coming up in the feet of people with Down syndrome?
Oh, Dr. B, thank you for asking about my passion area
Yeah.
of feet for people with Down syndrome. So, what is really unique for people with Down syndrome is that they often have a lot of commonalities in the way that they're built. Every person is different, but
Hmm.
just like you know from a medical perspective, there are some different issues that show up more frequently for people with Down syndrome. And the feet are one of those areas where we see so much commonality in the challenges of foot posture.
Mm.
So, for our people with Down syndrome, I want you to think of your favorite person with Down syndrome. And for all your listeners, think of your person. And I want you to think that you're looking down at their feet. What do they look like? For our people, 91% of people with Down syndrome have what we call a flat foot posture. So you may be thinking of your person and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
those arches, that part on the middle of the foot, it's just on the floor. And then you're thinking, well, he really likes to stand with his feet turned out.
Hmm.
So you're thinking of that turned out posture. So flat feet, increased foot turnout. And as our people get older, I want you to think about your person with their toes. You might notice that their toes, that big toe especially, likes to turn out to the side, which looks like a bunion, is what we call it. It's got a little bend with that big toe pointing to the outside.
Hmm.
Or your person might have a toe that's going more to the inside that looks like they're always wearing flip flops.
Yeah.
So we've got a lot of action happening through the toes, through the feet. Now, take yourself and go back behind your person, thinking of their heels, and you might see their heels at the top tilting in.
Hmm.
So, with this, all these different things that come together, it really affects how your feet feel. So, 100% of our people with Down syndrome have what we call ligamentous laxity.
Hmm.
And that means that the structures, those ligaments that connect bone to bone, are super bendy.
Hmm.
So that's super bendy through the body. So again, think about your person and think about how they can move and bend way more than you and me. That is the same that's happening in the feet. So there are 26 beautiful bones in the foot that are connected by ligaments that are super bendy. So those bendy ligaments down at the bottom of our body that's holding all our weight, helping us against gravity, they move into these very common positions of flat foot, increased turnout, that big toe working too hard, the heels tilting in, and how your feet are shaped and feel, they really affect how you want to walk, how to stand, and how to move. So when we think about the feet, like they are the powerhouse behind our participation in all the
Yeah.
things we want to do. And for our people with Down syndrome, there's just a lot of commonalities in things that are going on at the foot that can make that harder.
Yeah, and I feel like what you're just describing is something that, we talk about a lot in our clinic is that a lot of times people with Down syndrome will get an incorrect label where they're, oh, because they have Down syndrome, they're lazy. Oh, I hate that word. Oh, they're
Oh, yeah.
lazy. And oftentimes I think I say, well, say to that family member or educator or somebody who says that, I'll say, well, you try walking on the insides of your feet all day and tell me if you want to go out and participate when everybody else is leaving, right?
Oh my goodness, seriously. One of my patients long ago, her mom said, it's like she's got a magnet in her booty. So
Hmm.
anytime we're walking and she sees a bench, that magnet pulls her to sit down. And I said, well, how about we try some different shoes that help her feet feel good and see what happens? And it was a miracle that
Yeah.
with good shoes that felt strong and supportive, that magnet turned
Huh.
off.
Interesting. Yeah. So shoes seems like something we're going to be talking about today. So when should somebody start wearing shoes? Like, is this something that the moment they start, pulling to stand and cruising along that furniture that it's time for shoes when what would your advice be to somebody?
So great question.
Yeah.
So I trained under Pat Winders at the C
Uh-huh.
Center, one of the greatest physical therapists of
Oh
all
yeah.
time, when I was
Former
learning about,
podcast guest.
oh, she's so fabulous. And so, I've been indoctrinated in Pat's focus on how we do foot support for little ones and toddlers. And then our pediatric physical therapist, Dr. Jen Spirik, she's really built on that because we really are obsessed about feet at our office. It's just how we roll. But from our perspective, it's best when you start standing and cruising, be barefoot.
Mm,
Let those feet find the balance, find that movement. Once a child starts walking consistently, like 10 steps or more, and they're really in that walking mode, then we can start talking about shoes and foot support. But when you're just learning to pull to stand, when you're just learning to cruise, if you put on those shoes, and especially like heavy or flat shoes, it's like working out with ankle weights, little
yeah.
baby ankle weights. So really waiting until your child is walking more than 10, 15 steps independently, that's when you should like, then we'll start talking about all the good shoes.
And is there, not necessarily talking about brand unless you want to, but I mean, is
Oh,
there,
I'm going to talk about brand stuff
okay,
too.
then is there a type of shoe that you would recommend for that new walker? Is it, some people will say, like the high top shoe or specialty orthotic shoes. Like what would be something that you would recommend?
So I am not a fan of those shoes. Dr.
Okay.
Jen and I are really passionate. We have no affiliations with this company, but
Okay.
their shoes work great. So we love the Saucony Baby Ride. And
Oh,
I'm going to send Dr. V our
yeah.
foot support and all the links that have all these shoes in it. But Saucony is an actual running shoe company for kids, adults, babies. And they make this shoe that's called the Baby Ride. It's the tiniest, cutest little baby shoe from little kids size 4, tiny shoes, and all the way up to kids, big kid size 3 is where we stop. This little shoe, it comes in a wide, it comes in an extra wide, and it's amazing because it's a nice shoe that has a snug heel cup
Hmm.
and a wide forefoot and a flexible toe. So that's really important as opposed to those like orthotic shoes that are flat and heavy for a wide foot, or high top shoes that are a little more rigid, because you need the flexibility in the toe to learn how to move your foot properly for walking.
Hmm.
If you're locked into like a flat, heavy shoe with already a predisposition towards flat feet, you will be a flat, heavy walker.
Hmm.
And it's really challenging. So the Saucony Baby Ride for little kids, for new walkers, like little,
Yeah.
is one of our greatest shoes that we love to see kids head home with once they're independently stepping.
Awesome. And how about, I mean, we can get to it later or we can talk about it now. Are there shoes that you would recommend even as they get older? Are there
Why, yes, I would. Thank you for asking. Okay, so the Saucony brand, you don't have to lock into it, but I've just had such great success with it with like thousands, literally thousands of people across the lifespan, little kids, big kids. So the Saucony shoe, we start with that baby ride. And as they get older, we go into what they call the cohesion school, the cohesion shoe. It comes in laces if that's something you're practicing with your OT, or the alt closure with Velcro if you're practicing more independence. It comes in a wide. So if someone's wearing their orthotics that are a little bit over the ankle, like the Sure Step SMOs,
Mhm.
or even wearing an insert that goes in, there's room for it. So you can have a great shoe that's got room for your orthotics if needed. So we start with little kids, baby ride. Then we go to the Saucony Cohesion. This will be,
Mhm.
there are links. You can get them on
Sure.
Amazon. They're on sale all the time. So like you can always find a deal. It doesn't matter the model. Then here's a secret. Here's a big secret. At kid size 3, so your kid, say their foot is grown and they're right at that size 3. And for our people with Down syndrome, it takes a long time. They have smaller stature, they have smaller feet, so it takes longer to grow. So
Hmm.
when they hit that kid size 3, you can transition to a women's size 5.
Yeah.
So this is like a big deal in my passion area of shoes. I know you're all excited about this. What's going to happen, Sarah? At kid size 3, the shoes just aren't built as strong. Like kids who are in that kid size 3 or young adults in that size 3, they're busy. They are like full size people doing things, and the material of those kid size shoes tends to break down faster once you're in that kid size 3. When you can transition to a women's size 5 in that adult size, the shoes their structure changes. They're well built, they're strong, and you can transition to shoes that are going to last longer. They're more expensive in the adult shoes, but they last longer and provide better support. So after going from that Saucony cohesion, we often transition, if you have a small foot, right, that kid size 3, women's size 5, to the Brooks Adrenaline sneaker.
Mm.
And what I love about this shoe, Brooks is another great running company. They make great shoes for people who move. And it has worked beautifully for so many, especially in that transition size, because it's got this snug heel cup. So even if you have a flat foot, your heel is not flat. It's still skinny. We need it supported, but it has nice room through the forefoot that provides arch support and good support in the forefoot.
Huh.
So I love the Brooks Adrenaline as that transition shoe. For adults who may have a wider foot, like truly a wider foot or need a little bit more room, we love the Saucony Triumph. All
Hmm.
of these are on a link in a handout, so
Okay.
you can ask Dr. V about it. But I really love how these shoes make an immediate difference in how people feel in the way they want to move. Dr. Jen and I always joke because people ask us, like, well, how do you know that the shoe is making a difference? And we're like, well, usually when anyone puts on a new pair of shoes that we recommend, they just run away from us. So the running away and
Yeah.
jumping and celebrating is a generally like pretty clear sign, like, wow, that feels great.
Yeah.
So that's our number one test is like, here, try these shoes. Let's see how it works. Oh, you ran away. We're on our road.
Super helpful. And so I will definitely include all of these things in the show notes, that handout you were talking about, to our listeners. You just check your show notes of this podcast and you'll see it there. Um, so you talked a little bit about it, but you were talking about these shoes and you mentioned something about orthotics. We've looked at and talked about orthotics on this podcast before several years ago now. So give us your take from your perspective in terms of the role of orthotics and if there are specific ones that you recommend, things like that.
Yep, awesome. So for orthotics, just for people who may not be familiar with it, orthotics are devices that go into your shoe that help support your foot. So, like I talked about, people with Down syndrome, 91% of them have a flat foot posture. So, having any sort of support that really helps that foot feel stronger, especially on that arch and through that heel, is going to make their foot feel better
Hmm.
and help them move better for walking, running, jumping, stairs, playing, which is the number one goal. That's the goal, is like not just for your feet to look beautiful and strong in a perfect alignment, but so that you can move better.
Hmm.
So there are different types of orthotics. For little kids, because they're generally so flexible, like when they're really bendy when they're little, they need a little more support often through the ankles as well as the foot.
Hmm.
So we often recommend a little SMO. So it goes over the ankle. It's a real flexible plastic. And we go with the Sure Step brand. This is what Pat trained us on all through our lives. It has a really nice flexible toe. So you can get that push off while you're walking, but still have this nice support to your ankle and your heel.
Hmm.
So with our little ones, we start in the Sure Steps, and usually by kindergarten, those ankles are strong, those feet are in a better position, and we can transition away from that higher support level.
Hmm.
Then we generally move into an insert that goes in the shoe. So if you're thinking of, you might think of like Dr. Scholl's or something that you just put in the sole of your shoe. Or if you're looking at your shoes and you pull out that liner on the inside,
Hmm.
that's an insole. Most insoles in shoes, especially kids' shoes, are just flat fabric
Hmm.
with nothing extra to it. And that really doesn't give you a lot of help if your foot is flat or you need a little extra support. So the orthotic inserts that go in we use, that are just a nice insert go in, have increased arch support. They can cup the heel better and they provide less support than that over the ankle one, but
Hmm.
just enough that it gets your heel, your foot, your middle arch in the right position. So you're not going to be using your toes as hard. And again, it's helping your foot line up to do all the things you want to do with your walking and movement.
Hmm.
We do use a lot of different types of orthotics. And the key is really finding what I would say the best level of support that feels good to your person.
Hmm.
Because sometimes, especially if you've gone a long time without arch support, that it can feel like a surprise when you're suddenly like, woo, my feet. That's underneath
Yeah.
my arch. I feel like I'm standing on a rock. And we don't want that because then you don't want to move. In our office and with some of my, like when I find the right person, the right orthotist, that's who you go to see about orthotics, orthotists. And they can make custom foot orthotics. Now, our custom foot orthotics, I love this. Here's what I love. You can talk to your orthotist. I love a cork base because it's supportive, but not too hard.
Hmm.
And then a nice cloud or nickel plast overlay. So it gives you, so these are the materials if you're like a specifics person. That's what I like the best for our people. For people who are more sensitive, you can use a different type of foam and just go with cloud and it makes it a little softer.
Hmm.
Other companies, if you're like, I need this right now for my person, I need it, you can go onto Amazon. And some of the companies that I like that make good off the shelf inserts, they're in the $50 range, are Super Feet inserts.
Hmm.
And I like the green. They don't come in types, they come in colors. So
Ah.
the green or the blue are a nice arch support in Super Feet. They're in an adult size. Kids Soul Orthotics, they make some beautiful orthotics for kids, even down into the smaller size, and they're really affordable on Amazon, usually less than $25, and
Mm.
often with a coupon or a sale. And they're just a great place to start too. And then you don't feel too bad if your kid is like, well, I don't think so. You
Yeah.
can play with it a little bit. The Soul Orthotics, SOLE, also have some inserts that you can just get off Amazon that just make a nice they make a nice insert.
Hmm.
So those are my choices. Top notch usually is custom, where we can measure the foot. We take the impression in the foam or a digital modeling of the foot, and then make a specific orthotic for that person. Or off the shelf. I will tell you this. I think the shoe is the most important place to start. It's it's easier, and if you shift to a good shoe, just right off the bat, like, okay, my little one, like, we're going to try these Saucony cohesions.
Hmm.
They're going to feel the difference in the support right away. And that can be a lot. Like, whoa,
Hmm.
that's really a lot more than the flat ones I was wearing.
Yeah.
And that is a great place to start. So I always start with a shoe before I start with the orthotic,
Okay.
because that can give you just like that step in introducing how arch support feels, and you can see how it goes and you're like, oh, that feels really good. And as you get used to that arch support, if you go and you see your physical therapist for that assessment and see like would further support benefit our child, our adult, then you can make that decision. But the shoe is the best place to start.
And I guess that kind of led to the question I've been having in my head. So you talked about you have an infant, you're putting them into that shoe you were mentioning earlier. Um, do they really need? No, I guess not an infant, but a toddler, a walker. Do they really need an orthotic on top of the shoe that you're recommending, or is that overkill?
Generally for the little ones,
Yeah.
it's needed because they're
Okay.
just so bendy. Like that flexibility in those young years,
Uh-huh.
it's so flexible. Now, there are a lot of things that play into that decision, but I would say in our practice with little new walkers, 90% of them go into an orthotic with the shoe.
Uh-huh.
And what that does is it helps position the foot. Again, it's all about getting to move. Like that's what our toddlers want to do. They're up now. We're walking. They want to move. So if we can put that foot in the best position to help strengthen the muscles to support that, what we call foot posture, how your foot is set up,
Hmm.
so that they can literally start strengthening and moving and doing those million reps of running and climbing and all those things, it helps set everything up from their feet to their ankles to their knees to their hips to their low back,
Hmm.
all the way up the chain so that you're on the way for movement. So with little kids, I definitely say yes,
Yeah.
that's like a 90% in our clinic.
Hmm.
For our little kids, looking in that more school age range, when
Hmm.
we look after, so like into kindergarten up to 12-year-olds, let's say right in there, because that's kind of that preteen transition. Again, still flexible, still active. And we find that the good shoe, always most important for the first, like start with a shoe and then try the orthotic. And again, most of our people really like that additional support because in your school age years, it provides increased input to your feet. So, another passion area, you got a little talk here on Dr. Jen's, our pediatric PT, her
Uh-huh.
perspective. Again, for people with Down syndrome, So we're talking about the high commonality of flat feet and 100% ligamentous laxity. Everyone's got these bendy joints. In our joints, we have these different sensors, all of our joints, that are called proprioceptive sensors.
Hmm.
So these sensors, proprioceptive is a fancy word talking about where your body is in space.
Hmm.
Now, because our people with Down syndrome have bendier joints, those proprioceptive sensors don't always give the information accurately or quickly. So it can be hard to control your body because you're not quite sure where it is.
Hmm.
With an orthotic and good shoes, you're going to increase that proprioceptive action, all that where is my body sensation in your feet, which is huge for balance, for reactions, for running, which is really important for our school agers because you're running on the playground, you're keeping up with your peers. And if you're getting more input from your feet and know where your body is, it's easier to do the things that you want to do at that age.
Yeah.
So it has an even bigger effect than just like how your foot is set up. It starts giving better information for balance and movement and transitions in those school age years. And
What about
then,
as?
yeah,
Oh yeah, go ahead. Yeah,
yeah,
please. I was
then,
gonna say. Yeah, I
then,
think you're going
like,
there. Yeah.
gotta keep going. So, like, just across the lifespan, as you
Yeah.
shift into those teen and adult years,
Hmm.
all of us, like, as we shift into teens and adults, our body changes. Puberty hits, hormones hit, you may have been like a skinny mini and now you're like, where did these hips come from? Or weight comes on. That changes how our feet feel because you're having different weight, you're having different growth. And that can change what your feet are doing. Again, that ligamentous laxity doesn't go away. So as we become grown-ups and grown-up bodies with more weight, more muscle, all the things, and more activity. Now you're standing at Biddy and Bose, you're doing your job for 4 hour shifts. You are doing all the things. You were on the Special Olympics track team, you go to exercise class, all these things in an adult or like a teenage sized body, you're putting a lot of demand on your feet. So a good shoe with good footwear now is going to help not only with your foot posture, not only with your balance, but helping you feel that support and endurance for all the activities that you're doing with your grown up body.
That's great. And I feel like these are things that, as you're describing it to us, is so helpful for us to visualize this as you're talking about it. I can see all the feet that I see all day long in clinic and see how what you're talking about would be so helpful for them. I wanted to clarify, though, something. I know that a lot of our families will hear the term orthotist. And they'll end up going to an orthopedic. And I'm not saying anything negative about my orthopedic colleagues, but it seems that their training is a little bit different, at least the ones that I've run into with regards to the use of orthotics or special shoes for somebody with Down syndrome, because they'll say these things aren't going to fix the arch or fix the toe issues. How do you respond to something like that?
Well, first off, I do want to like have a little conversation about all the people who name things ortho. We were just laughing at that at our house, like that our son was going to the orthodontist and the orthopedic and our orthotist was coming in. Those are a lot of words that sound the same,
Yeah.
but they're very different.
Yeah.
So ortho really comes down to like bones.
Hmm.
And so that's great. Now, orthopedic people, they fix bones. So
Hmm.
like an orthopedic surgeon, if your hip is broken, you should go see them. They're
Hmm.
going to help you.
Hmm.
An orthotist, they are people who help build equipment that helps support your body. So an orthotist is going to help build inserts. They're going to, if you have, you need a back brace or a knee brace, or if you are getting a new, uh, just a new device, any type of new device, that's who your orthotist is.
Hmm.
So orthotists, they definitely have a different perspective from PTs, but they're also, I feel like, receptive to helping. Most, like everyone that I've worked with across the country will be receptive to like, okay. The thing too about foot support is that it's not do or die.
Hmm.
Like if someone has good foot support with an orthotist who really didn't believe it was going to help, even if that person wears it every day, they will not have any bad repercussions from it. It's
Hmm.
not like it's going to cause trauma. So
Uh-huh.
it's really like it's a very low risk opportunity for improvement.
Yeah.
So most orthotists, again, orthotists who make the devices, they're flexible in saying, it's not going to change it. We are not going to change your ligament structure. That is
Uh-huh.
true.
Yeah.
We are not going to change every ligament in your body. And a lot of PTs, like when I talk to our PT students, they're like, well, Sarah, we should strengthen the intrinsic, the tiny muscles of the foot. And I was like, have you ever tried that? It's really tedious.
Yeah.
And you could commit to it. I support people to do that. But I don't think it's going to be that fun every day.
Hmm.
And if I can do something that's very low risk to my overall health, it's like likely to help and lets me move better. Most orthotists are very flexible and saying, okay, you can do
Yeah.
that,
Uh-huh.
and adjusting with it. And that's the thing. Like, I hate to always put it on the parents and the caregivers, but we do advocate a little bit. And that's what I hope with like having the specifics of information to ask for. Like, that's what I love. Like, here are the specifics, what I would ask for.
Hmm.
Tell your orthotist this is what you want. And they can be like, well, I do it this way. Like, oh, well, let's try it this way and see.
Yeah.
And odds are it's going to help with
Yeah.
very low risk
Yeah.
and provide a nice boon to movement.
I love it. I love that perspective. So yeah, thank you for sharing that and explaining all the different fields that people will run into when it comes to these types of discussions. I feel like I've learned a ton on this podcast. I'm sure that our listeners have as well. Before we close, though, is there anything that you want to leave our listeners with, or anything we didn't discuss that you wanted to make sure that we talk about before we close the podcast today?
Thank you, Dr. B. I think the
Yeah.
most important thing is that feet really do matter. And
Hmm.
there are very simple steps, no pun intended, that you can take to help your feet feel better so that you want to move more. And that's
Hmm.
the key, in my opinion, is that we keep everyone moving. You, me, all our friends with Down syndrome, is to keep moving and participating in the things they want. And I really encourage every single person who hears this to take a look at their feet and the feet of their person with Down syndrome, and choose a good pair of shoes
Hmm.
and see how that feels with making a difference in our want and our ability to move.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much for your passion for this topic, and also for all the work that you do for so many people with Down syndrome. I think that's just fantastic for being that great resource for all of us who do clinics like I do. It's been great to be able to learn from you today. So thanks again.
Thank you so much for letting me share my passion about feet.
Awesome, awesome. And to our listeners, I hope you learned a ton today, as I did. If there are topics that you want us to cover on this podcast, please send me an email to downsyndromecenter@chp.edu. And if you would like to join us in the work that we do here at the center, including the support of this podcast, you can go to givetochildrens.org/Down Syndrome Center. But until next time, bye bye.